Hi, my name is Arturo Suarez, and I will be presenting about Martin Luther King Jr. in my author discussion. Martin Luther King Jr. is a big name that I believe most of us have heard of, but I'm really excited to relate him to the learnings and relevant themes about this class. Martin Luther King Jr.'s date of birth was January 15th, 1929. The place of birth was Atlanta, Georgia, and his major works, or his most recognized works, are A Letter from a Birmingham Jail, I've Been to the Mountaintop, and his most famous I Have a Dream speech. Who was Martin Luther King Jr.? Martin Luther King Jr. was a Baptist minister and civil rights activist who had one of the biggest impacts on race relations in the United States, starting in the mid-1950s. Through his activism and inspirational speeches, he played a pivotal role in ending the legal segregation of African American citizens in the United States. He played a big role in the creation of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Voting Rights Act of 1965. He also won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. What he is most recognized for is, on August 28, 1963, the historic March on Washington drew more than 2,000 people in the shadow of the Lincoln Memorial. This is where Martin Luther King delivered his most famous I Have a Dream speech. This speech emphasizes his belief that someday all men could be called brothers. Analysis of A Letter from a Birmingham Jail. Martin Luther King Jr. was jailed along with a large number of his supporters in a demonstration in downtown Birmingham. He confesses that he feels disappointed with the white community that ignores the suffering of African Americans who promise equality and don't fulfill that promise. This is what he talks about in that letter that he wrote. He also expresses that people have a moral responsibility to break unjust laws and to take direct action rather than waiting for potential justice that may never happen. A really powerful quote that I learned from this letter is, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." Now, relating this to the class, I would like to relate this to the parable of the sower, which we read in class. What the United States was going through during the time of Martin Luther King is similar to what I learned from the readings in the parable of the sower. In the parable of the sower, the nation has regressed into violence, chaos, economic disparity, and racial divisions. A character is Lauren. Lauren acts as an activist in the parable of the sower, similar to Martin Luther King in real life. In Parable of the Sower, people begin to be drawn to Lauren just how people in real life begin to start being drawn to Martin Luther King, as she gains the trust of people to embark on a journey to a promised land in North Carolina. It's much different to what Martin Luther King stands for, where he stands for racial justice, but he also gains the trust of many people that start to follow him. Martin Luther King Jr. also gains the trust of people through his powerful speeches and begins what are some of the most powerful movements in achieving racial justice in the United States. Some relevant themes are, throughout the voice threads we have read in this class, there are many activists for racial equality in the United States. Examples such as Booker T. Washington, who was born into slavery and rose to becoming a leading African American intellectual. Martin Luther King actually attended Booker T. Washington High School. Booker T. Washington founded Tuskegee Normal and Industrial Institute, which is now Tuskegee University. Another example would be James Baldwin, an African American writer whose works helped raise public awareness of racial and sexual oppression in the United States. Martin Luther King Jr. joins them in the fight. He is one of the most notable names in the fight for racial equality. He fights through literature, as well as you can see in the letter from a Birmingham jail, and which is also one of the most constant themes in this class, how literature has propelled a fight for African Americans to reach racial equality and raise awareness to the whole of the United States what they are going through. It is a powerful way of expressing the injustice that they were going through in the United States at the time. Martin Luther King's inspirational speeches is what I can most relate to, because in my personal opinion, this is the most powerful way of sending a powerful message across. Despite the motives of the speech, as we can see with the I Have a Dream speech, just how important it is to fight for racial equality and its place in history, I believe a speech is where the audience can really identify with the speaker and feel the true pain or motivation that the speaker is feeling. Martin Luther King's death came as no big surprise, because he lived under the constant threat of death because of his social status. Since he was a powerful activist, that comes along with gaining many enemies. He was killed by a sniper's bullet while standing on the balcony outside of his room. But he left a seismic impact and a great legacy on race relations in the United States. Proof of legacy is that we have a national holiday named after him, which is Martin Luther King Day. We have schools and public buildings named after him, and a memorial on the Independence Mall in Washington, D.C. This is my works cited page. That is all. Thank you.